knots unraveled. Thought I knew the truth, now I'm not so sure. Here we are, under a heartbreak sky. Baby, I don't know why I flew away too soon. I can't help tears burning in my eyes. Leave me alone to fly under a jealous moon. Sun burns out at the end of the day. Words get lost on the edge of the wave. Even if I can't hear you, I'll keep listening. Bitter pills, water and whiskey, I drink my fill. I know you miss me, I still hear your voice in everything I do. Here we are, under a heartbreak sky. Baby, I don't know why I flew away too soon. I can't help tears burning in my eyes. Leave me alone to fly under a jealous moon. Here we are, under a heartbreak sky. Baby, I don't know why I flew away too soon. I can't help tears burning in my eyes. Leave me alone to fly under a jealous moon. Leave me alone to fly under a jealous moon. Leave me alone to fly. No common sense of timing. Ever since you saw me, you've been picking up speed. You've got a heart like a runaway train, screaming down the mountainside, burning like a fever that you can't contain, humming like the 405. Headed off the rails and you're coming in fast. You're about to hit me like a heart attack. Oh, you got a heart like a runaway train. No drugstore roses, no cheap champagne, stuff I'd only throw away. Comets sailing, arrows flying, we're roller coaster riding, saying all the things that we shouldn't say. But I gotta say, oh, you got a heart like a runaway train, screaming down the mountainside, burning like a fever that you can't contain, humming like the 405. Headed off the rails and you're coming in fast. You're about to hit me like a heart attack. Whoa, you got a heart like a runaway train. Runaway, 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 runaway. Oh, you got a heart like a runaway train, screaming down the mountainside, burning like a fever that you can't contain, humming like a 405. Headed off the rails and you're coming in fast. You're about to hit me like a heart attack. Oh, you got a heart like a runaway train, like a runaway train, like a runaway train.
Super excited to be in the studio with Sarah Jarosz. Sarah's album Polaroid Lovers came out in January, and it's doing great, I think, right?
It feels that way.
It sure does. I'm so excited because this is a different sound for you in a way. And as a matter of fact, I was going to tell you that the first song, Jealous Moon, that you played, when I heard it, I thought, is Sarah Jarosz gone Bob Dylan, going electric in the 60s? What has happened? But then the rest of the album came out, and it's gorgeous. It's
Thank
gorgeous.
you.
Anybody else saying that about the sound of the album?
Yeah. It's definitely different for me on especially a song like Jealous Moon. I think I've always been exploratory in my music. I've always wanted to kind of dip my toes into, new sonic territory. Mm-hmm. I think this record was sort of jumping all the way in with that sort of thing, and just not being afraid to just go for it and really try it. And ultimately, it felt like it's what the song wanted. So why would I deny the song that,
Yeah, true. Yeah. The title Polaroid Lovers means, as I read in another interview, snapshots of different love stories throughout the album. Can you talk about the theme of the record a little bit?
Yeah, I realized sometimes themes sort of emerge after the fact for me. I didn't go into it thinking that's what it was necessarily going to be. The lyric comes from When the Lights Go Out, which we played on the show. And it could be taken literally as two lovers in a Polaroid photo, which I just liked that as a title. But then, sort of if you zoom out a little bit, I realized that each story is a snapshot, and a lot of the songs are almost sort of dealing with time and the fleeting nature of time, and looking back and looking forward and where we are in time. And I kind of liked a photo, being the thing that sort of captures that. And the moment is gone, but the photo lives, and songs are kind of like that. Yeah.
You produced this record in Nashville, and you worked with Daniel Tashian on this?
Yeah, Daniel Tashian produced the record.
Yeah. First time working with Daniel, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I got together in the spring of 2022. I decided I wanted to sort of reach out to some writers in Nashville and really kind of try the co-writing thing in a I don't know, in a Nashville sort of way. I felt like I knew myself well enough to be able to try that for real. And Daniel was the first person that I got together with. And we just totally hit it off. We wrote a song on the record called Take the High Road. And it just was incredibly exciting to me what it could sort of lead to. And so he and I continued to write over the course of the year. And eventually I just loved working with him so much that I asked him to produce the album.
You did a lot of collaborations on this record, Jealous Moon. Many of the songs are written with Daniel and some with other writers. Talk about that process. How do you co-write a song?
Well, I've definitely co-written before. Obviously, in my band, I'm with her, with Aoife and Sarah. We write all the songs together. I've written with other musicians, primarily musicians and artists before this, but the writers that I wrote with on this record, I think of primarily as writers. They are just craftspeople, and so it was. I learned a lot in the process of writing with people who that's what they do every single day. And I think I had sort of shied away from doing that when I was 17 or 18 and working on my first record, because I thought, okay, you sit down with someone and if they're really good at writing, maybe they'll kind of take over and I'll get lost in the mix of that. And I won't, sort of know what my own voice is. But with this record, I feel like I kind of know more what I can bring to the table musically and what my musical voice is. And so it felt like there's only something to be gained from that process of sitting down and sharing musical ideas with someone and kind of getting out of your own head a bit. I think you have to leave your ego at the door when you're writing with someone, because there has to be this openness and exchange with them.
So you walk in with a basic idea and say, this is what I've got. Here's the chords, here's the verse, here's the chorus. What happens when the other person listens and says, I think you need a bridge there or something?
I think, you, like I said, you can be open to that.
Yeah.
And honesty is everything. I think there's a lot of just quickly letting go of things that if you kind of hold on too tightly to something, it just stops the whole process from moving forward. But yeah, with this record, it was a mixture of kind of coming to the table with ideas already and having that other person maybe help me get it to the finish line. Other times we would just come into the room and just kind of start from scratch together. And that's also a really fun process to do it that way.
Let's talk about some of the other people you collaborated with on this record besides Daniel. You worked with Natalie Hemby and Jon Randall, Ruston Kelly. What was that like? Yeah,
it was all of them. I'm just such fans of. Ruston, I've known for a long time. He actually weirdly opened a show for me like forever ago, which seems crazy to say now. And so we had known each other, and that Ruston is actually an example of a song that we wrote, Dying Ember, together. And I had been sitting on most of that song for years. I loved the chorus so much, and I could just never get the verses right. And so he really helped me get that one finished. Natalie Hemby is a great story, because I did actually write with Natalie when I was 18, sort of in those early days of managers and label people wanting me to co-write and me sort of not being ready for it. But Natalie was so sweet then, and I loved working with her. I just didn't quite feel ready for it. So to be able to kind of have this full circle moment with her and come back around to getting to be in the room writing with her when I felt ready for it, it was really special, because we had that history. And that song, Good at What I Do, is an example of a song that she sort of brought to the table, and she kind of had the first verse and the idea of, am I good at what I do? And I think she had kind of been saving it for me. Mm-hmm. And so we finished that one together. And then Jon Randall, I've known forever. We have the Texas history in common, and we had never written together. And the first song we wrote was Runaway Train. And I was so stoked.
I love that song.
Thank you.
Matter of fact, the whole record, there's so many sing-alongable tunes, that end up being earworms in my brain for the rest of the day. It's
That's
just great.
awesome.
Yeah. So we talked while we were getting ready for this interview about your work with I'm With Her, and you said something is coming, perhaps, with the three of you.
Yeah. I can't. I don't have any like solid details to share at this point, but we are in the early stages of working on another project, which I'm extremely excited about.
Yeah. Sarah, congratulations on this record.
Thank
the album
you.
is called Polaroid Lovers. It came out in January. Good luck on your tour, and thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me back.
The Current is public media made possible thanks to member support.